you know Kenya has a mine containing radioactive materials, and almost nobody is talking about it? Kwale County, on Kenya's southeastern coast, 50 kilometers from Mombasa. Lush green landscapes, mango trees, sandy beaches, quiet villages. It looks like paradise, and that is exactly what makes it dangerous. For years, foreign companies came to this ground. They found one of the most valuable minerals on Earth, titanium. The deposits were enormous, hundreds of millions of tons of ore sitting in the sand beneath this coastal paradise. So they moved in, they cleared the land. Communities were displaced. They built processing plants, conveyor systems, and shipping terminals. They dug, they crushed, they processed, they shipped. And when the ore finally ran out, they packed up and they left. But here's what they left behind that most of the public still do not know about. Before the first shovel ever touched this ground, a scientist at a Kenyan university already knew something was wrong. He studied the composition of these sands carefully, and what he found alarmed him. He wrote a formal warning, a peer-reviewed scientific document, and published it. He said clearly that disturbing what was inside this soil was dangerous, that the titanium mining process would release radioactive elements that had been locked safely inside the rock for millions of years. He presented the evidence, he made the case, he put it on record. That mining operation proceeded regardless. So what was he actually warning about? When you mine titanium, you crush the ore and take what you want, but you leave the rest behind. And what gets left behind is not harmless sand. This ore contains naturally occurring radioactive materials, specifically uranium-238, thorium-232, and radium-226. In their natural state, locked deep inside undisturbed rock, these elements are largely inert. The communities here lived alongside them safely for generations without even knowing they were there. Nature had sealed them in. The moment you crush that ore and strip out the titanium, you have disturbed that seal. Those previously stable radioactive elements are no longer locked inside anything. The mining process releases a radioactive substance called thorium-230. It also releases a deadly invisible gas called radon. And radon does not stop there. It breaks down further into radioactive particles called polonium, bismuth, and lead. These particles can move, they can travel, and once released, they cannot be recalled. Now here's where the science becomes genuinely terrifying. Thorium-230 has a radioactive half-life of 77,000 years. Let that land for a moment. The Egyptian pyramids are approximately 4,500 years old. They're considered one of humanity's most ancient surviving structures. Thorium-230 will still be radioactive when something 17 times older than the pyramids is considered ancient history. 77,000 years. And during every single one of those years, thorium-230 will be slowly, continuously breaking down, releasing radon gas, which breaks down into polonium, bismuth, lead. Radioactive particles drifting into the soil around the tailings, into the groundwater below the surface, into the roots of plants drawing water from that ground, into the animals eating those plants, and eventually, silently, invisibly, without any warning, into the people. And you would never know. There is no smell, no color, no taste, no visible sign of any kind. The water drawn from a well near this site looks completely clean. The cassava harvested from a field above the water table looks perfectly normal. The maize, the coconuts, all of it looks exactly as it should. But independent scientific studies suggest that the water in this region already carries isotopic signatures consistent with radioactive material that has been disturbed deep below the surface. The contamination pathway from the mining tailings through the subterranean water table into the agricultural land above it is not a theory. It is a documented mechanism observed at mining sites around the world, and the conditions for it exist in this county right now. Over 3,000 residents were displaced from their ancestral land to make way for this operation. Families who had farmed this ground for generations. Communities whose graves, whose sacred sites, whose entire way of life was embedded in this soil. They were relocated, compensated, in the view of many, inadequately, and left with questions about the land they left behind and the land they now occupy. Those questions about the water, about the soil, about what is in the food they grow and eat every day. Those questions have persisted for years, without satisfactory answers, without a government monitoring program adequate to the scale of the concern, without the kind of independent scientific oversight that a contamination of this potential duration demands. The mining is over. The foreign companies are gone. This coastal community is quiet again. The mango trees are still heavy with fruit. The ocean breeze is still warm off the Indian Ocean. Children still play barefoot in the red, laterite soil. But thorium-230 will still be radioactive in the year 79,000, and the radon it produces will still be rising through that soil, into that water, into those crops, long after the companies have moved on to the next deposit, long after the processing plants have rusted into the ground, long after everyone involved in this decision has been forgotten. The question is not whether this situation deserves urgent, sustained, independent, scientific attention. The question, the one that has never been satisfactorily answered, is who is watching it, and whether they will begin watching before the answer to that question matters more than the question itself.